Oh. Oh. Hola. Buenos días todo el mundo. Push, dush. Ba-bang. Ba-bang, bang. Buenos días. Good morning. Okay. We're back with more Spanish vocab work. And an unfortunate announcement for this stream is this is gonna be our last Spanish stream. Period. Well, one that's focused on learning Spanish as a language. It's great. I would love to continue this if I could, and that's the big thing, if I could. Now, why can't I? Well, I've got a lot on my plate for this upcoming semester, and by that I mean a lot on my plate. So, I'm gonna complete the first set of vocabs I have in my textbook, finally. And, we'll have this as the first leg of this stream done. Perhaps we'll one day return, but we'll see. We will see. Oof. All right. Okay. Well then. Big announcement out of the way. It's a time to go. I would say. All right. So last time we went with we did presentations, so presentaciones, and we learned a lot of things like what's your name, cómo se llama usted, cómo te llamas, me llamo y usted y tú, mucho gusto, el gusto es mío, encantado, encantada, igualmente, esta, es, te presento a, el nombre. And we had assistance with that too. So that was a whole bunch of fun stuff. Let me just quickly fix myself. I just realized I'm not normal. This is the old me before I got a webcam. Now you see the new me with the new webcam, so I get to move around while I'm using my I have two webcams essentially. Okay. Okay, so for today, we'll start with de donde eres, or de donde es, de donde es. Where are you from? Where are you from? So this category is called de donde es. And excuse me. Right, well, let's start with our first words. Here. De donde es usted? Oh. Boom, 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 boom. So this is a question asking, where are you from? Where are you from? And being usted, as you learned last time, this is formal. Alright, now we'll learn the other one. ¿De dónde eres? ¿De dónde eres? Note the eres bit. This is the conjugated form for tú. So, this is also, where are you from? Where are you from? And this is familiar or casual speak. Give me a moment. Sorry about that. Let's return and continue. Alright, and finally, our reply to this. We say, soy de blah 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 blah, which means I'm from somewhere. Soy de Canadá. Soy de América. No. Soy de Estados Unidos. The United States. I just remember that, like, the moment I said America. Soy de Nippon. Is it Nippon? No. Soy de... You say Japon. Japon. Right, because it's a silent. Is it silent? No, it's what do you call it? Alright, now I'm super doubting myself. Japon. There we go. Japon. Ah, okay. I was right with that initial assumption. Okay. Okay. Palabras adicionales. I don't know what this means, actually. Palabras adicionales. Additional words. So palabras is words, adicionales is additional. Additional words. Let's write that out. Palabras Addicionales. No accents. Additional words. Nice. Continuing on, we have cuánto. Oh boy, there's a lot of brackets here, so that means there's a lot of ways to say it based on context. So, cuánto, or with an S if it's plural, slash a, and an S if it's plural. This means a little close, it looks like here, to my question mark. I forgot my little arrow I like to use. Okay. How many or how much? So so this is the differentiation that you'll utilize based on what's being asked about. Masculine, so type 1 words, nouns, type 1 nouns, plurals. I haven't used type 1 in so long. It's been quite a long time, but we're finally back. And then whether or not it's singular or plural. Type 2, feminine, singular or plural. Type 1, type 2s. Right. And so you'll ask cuánto, cuántos, cuánta, cuántas. Those are the 4 ways of saying how much, how many, based on what you're asking about. Next question, and a lot of these are questions surprisingly, is, get that question mark down. De quién and this is whose singular version. Singular. Singular. There's also, as a combo pair to learn this, there's de quiénes. De quiénes. Oh. I forgot to mention there's also these ... dots before the question mark. So this is like the sentence starter or the question starter. It's doesn't have to be at the start of the sentence. So there could be something before it, but almost for sure there's something after it. And now this is also whose, but plural. And our final little extra word here is, in brackets, no I. Remember, the H is silent, so no I. This holds a couple meanings. There is, in brackets not. There is not. And also, there are, in brackets not. Oh, squish at the edge there. Let's move that so it's not as squished. Like so. And those are additional pieces of vocab here. I'll draw a nice little squiggly line above it so that I can border it off. Set them up as sets. Like so. Let's move on to país. Países. Countries. Países. País mean country. Países mean countries. Argentina. 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 I think that's pretty straightforward. What you see is what you get. Okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna write down the name once if it's a what you see, what you get moment, because we seem to have a lot of these. So Argentina. We also have Costa Rica. Costa Rica. Cuba. Not like the English cue ball, but Cuba. If I remember correctly, it should be Cuba. Cool. Like cool. That ooh. Cuba. Ecuador, I believe. This one I'm less sure about. Ecuador. España. This one's spelled differently. This one's Spain. España, Spain. Here's a bit I said earlier. Estados Unidos. And this is the United States, so the US. For some odd reason, I don't understand it, but it probably makes sense to you Spanish speakers, perhaps. This is abbreviated to EE.UU. Estados Unidos. I don't get that, but that is what it is. We have Mexico. In English we say Mexico, but in Spanish it's Mexico. With the accent of the E. And then the last one, kind of don't really have much space left, huh? Puerto Rico. So we read like this. Puerto Rico. Put on the side there. Okay, so we have our countries. From the left, Puerto Rico, Argentina, Costa Rica, Cuba, Estados Unidos, Ecuador, España, Mexico. Anyone who sees that, feel free to correct how I said it, maybe in the comments, since yeah, that's probably where you're gonna see like a part of the video. Feel free to leave a comment and say, hey, it's actually pronounced like this, and then type out the pronunciations perhaps. Okay. Give me a moment. All right. Let's move on. We've actually blitzed through a few things, but they're short. This is our last thing, and it's pretty long. Pretty long. This last list. Sustantivos. Like, those are nouns, right? If I remember correctly. Sustantivos. Nouns. Yes, okay. I'm still surprised at why nouns are called sustantivos in Spanish. Sustantivos. Nouns. Okay. Our first one is el autobus. I need help for this one. Autobus. Let's see. I believe I head to the dictionary here.
Autobus.
Autobus. Yeah. Autobus. I just had to make sure I was pronouncing that right compared to, well, really anywhere else, right? In English, we call it an autobus because that's how it's spelled for us. Auto and bus. Yep. Autobus. In Spanish, it's autobus. And yeah, it's just how the verbs, the vowels are, right? Ow, the AU, ow, the AU, because the U makes a oo sound, the A makes an ah sound. Ow, so it combined, it sounds like ow. So auto, o, the O makes the O sound. Autobus. And this is a bus. La capitale. La capitale. The capital. Capital city. We've covered this already, but El Chico makes sense to be in a vocab list, right? You should be knowing this. The boy, or boy. La chica, girl. La computadora, computer. La comunidad. La con. Oh, remember, it's just one M. There's no double M, no doubling usually. Comunidad. Community. El or la conductor, in brackets a for the la. This means driver. La conversación. La conversación, conversation. La cosa, thing. Like you want this thing. Hey, what is that thing over there? La cosa, thing. El cuaderno. This is a notebook. El día. There's an accent. El día de. El diario. El diario. Diary. El diccionario. This one's a double consonant. El di. C. I don't remember if it's a hard K sound or it's just an S sound. El di. I mean, that's what this is for, right?
Diccionario.
Diccionario. Diccionario. El diccionario. There we go. It's actually both. Surprise, surprise. All right. Next we have la escuela. La. You can barely see it down there. La escuela. School. This is the physical building school, by the way. The physical school building. Actually, what else would it be? I don't know why I said that, now that I think about it. I thought maybe perhaps there was something that was a non-physical version of a school. That would be schooling, I believe. Yeah. Next we have what goes hand in hand with the school. La estudiante. student. Now we have la photo, in brackets, grafia, la foto, la fotografia, photograph, photograph by Nickelback. Alright. El hombre. Our next one is el hombre. Man. Man, oh man. Man. Okay. La joven, youth, young person. El or la joven, joven. This means youth. Young person. Voila. Next on their list is el lápiz. Is there an accent? No. Okay. On the I meant. There is one on the A. Pencil. Pencil. La lesión. La lesión. Lesson. Lesson. La maleta. La maleta. Suitcase. La mano. La mano. Hand. La mano. Yabuo! Hola! Hey there. Another why do you want to learn Spanish question? It's because I enjoy Spanish. So that's like the biggest reason, right? You enjoy something, but really it's I want to have that language knowledge. I'm a big I'm greatly enjoy languages. However, on stream anyways, I'm not gonna have enough time to focus on this much longer because I do have my studies actually coming up, so my study streams will be switching focus to those instead. So I'm gonna probably be putting this on the back burner for a long time, but if I happen to be here long enough, you can bet there's going to be the return of the Spanish class. But yeah, for today, my focus is finishing up our first list of vocabulary words here in the textbook I'm reading, and that's pretty much the goal. Well, I hope you're having a wonderful time, by the way. It's definitely been a time for a lot of people, but we can only keep moving forward. So, la mano, the hand. Hello, hello, Nahito. Or is it Najito? Nahito? I have no idea how you pronounce your name, my friend. There's so many ways to pronounce the J. But welcome. I hear Spanish is pretty tough though. As a linguist, I'll just say, your first language for everyone, no matter who you are, will be your easiest language. The second language you learn will always be the hardest thing in the world. So, take that as you will. Hola, me no habla inglés. Ah. Te llamas. How do you pronounce? Un momento. ¿Cómo pronuncias tu nombre? ¿Cómo pronuncias tu nombre? You're joking? But still, how do you pronounce your name? Because again, as I said, it's lots of ways to pronounce that J. Lots of different ways. Yeah, hard J. Okay, Najito. Cool. And Yabu, if I can call you that. It's definitely up to each person, but universally, your first language will always be the easiest. It doesn't matter what your first language is. Universally around the globe, your first language you learn easily. Your brain is wired to easily learn that, and doing so as quickly as physically possible. It's once you move on to the next language that difficulties arise. It's possible to say that certain languages will be more difficult than others, but that's completely relative to what your first language is. So, for a Spanish speaker, for example, who is native to Spanish, French and Italian are going to be languages that are somewhat easier to learn. Not going to say it's easy, but it's easier to learn relative to something brand new, like one of the Eastern languages, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. Aside from the fact that you have a different alphabet altogether, the style, the type of language itself is different. You go from a more sentence-heavy language, so focus on emphasis on the grammar and syntax of the sentences themselves. You move on to like a tonal language, where emphasis is placed on tones of each word you're pronouncing in order to mean certain things. Once the style changes like that, it's going to be a little more difficult, but ultimately it's not the jump in difficulty is definitely relative, but second language is definitely going to be a very hard thing to pick up, not to mention once you can do more and more languages. Right. It's definitely, it's because I mean, obviously it depends on how you want to pivot your language learning, right? For an English speaker, maybe you learn French, maybe you learn Spanish next, because you're still using the Roman alphabet, so, or the letters are the same. Perhaps you'll have the accents and whatnot, but the Romance languages are very close to the English language. Maybe even German if you wish to go that route with it, but those are still using the English letters. German does have special characters, but they're very close. It's not the hardest thing in the world to learn. You jump over to something completely brand new as a second language instead, and you'll take a little bit more time. But once you hit a second language and you're fluent in it, the later languages down the line will not appear to be as difficult as your time learning your second language. But to each their own and their struggles. Everyone will feel differently about it. That's just one of the generalizations we have in linguistics. Let's see, so this is hand. Back to this is el mapa. El mapa. Map. Like, for me personally, I have plenty of difficulty learning an extra language, but I'm trying my best. La mujer. But that's what's, I guess, unfortunate at this point is I did make an announcement at the beginning of the lesson, so I suppose I should do it around now as well, near the end of the lesson, and that's today's gonna be the last day. This is woman, however you wish to pronounce that. Today's gonna be the last stream for Spanish vocab stuff and Spanish in general for a little bit. I want to put my whole heart focus into Japanese. You're a linguist. Are you studying something related to linguistics? That is literally my major. That is literally what my major is. Just linguistics. I haven't. So it's because it's a general. It's a BA. I haven't tried to focus and major into anything like phonology, phonetics. I'm not going directly into a route. Like, I'm not a syntax major. I'm not majoring in grammar or anything of that sort. Just simple linguistics. My current goal is to just get my BA and enter into a program that allows me to teach English in Japan. So that's what my focus right now is, actually Japanese. In terms of streaming stuff, it's my personal focus, and that's because I have better notes to gain access to, and I'm far more familiar with the Japanese language, personally speaking. Though I am a very native English speaker, born and raised in the Great White North of Canada, the land of the maple syrup. Linguistics is fun. It's the study of languages. What that means is everything's math. I like to say this, everything's math. Once you enter linguistics, you learn, oh, it's all math all the way down. Everything's a formula. There's a formula to everything. Everything's formulaic. So people would drop math, well, you drop the number portion of it, but you'll live your life using mathematics anyways. You'll be using formulas. Nacionalidad. You like that? Yeah, no, I like that too. I love mathematics. I'm that kid, or one of them. I actually, with me and the kids I grew up with, we were all math kids. Not all of us, but there were a lot of us. It's not like media where you have like that one math nerd. No, there was a whole group of us. We were all math nerds. Okay, nationality. Hola, Senpai of Crime. Welcome. ¿Cómo estás? El número number el país country la palabra word. You know what's really funny? When I think of like a lot of the English slang, and then try to think of how that's pronounced in other languages. Muy bien. Estoy en mi trabajo. Very good, very good. How do you? I don't know how you say this in Spanish. So let me just Google translate this. Hope you have a fun day. A good day. Espero que tengas un buen día. I hope I said that right. Espero que tengas un buen día. I hope I said that correctly for you, buddy. Because I just broke Google Translate. Wow. Okay. Hey. I'm gonna write that out on my text on my notebook here afterwards. It is my new catchphrase. It's the longest catchphrase that I'll never remember. Alright. La pasajera. Pasajera. This means passenger. El problema. Problem. La profesora. La profesor, brackets A. This is your teacher. La turista. Turista. A tourist. Must be so annoying having to learn the articles for every word. Actually, it's not, Yabu. And this goes back to how things are formulaic. I suppose learning this not from a linguist's viewpoint, would kind of suck. German has 3, yeah, because you have the class 1, class 2, class 3 classification, masculine, feminine, neuter. As linguists, we call them class 1, class 2, class 3. But everything's formulaic. Everything has a formula to it. So for us, it just makes sense. You need that to make the formula work. So for us, we're fine with it. It makes perfect sense. Something we learn in linguistics is we don't make the rules. That's not how this works. We find the rules and we follow along with it. We have to find the rules. Language is there. We don't write rules on how language works. We have to figure out how the language works and then write out the rules based off that. So, the nicest thing about articles is that they tell us so much information, so much context of what's being said. It's wonderful. English, lacking the amount of articles that can be used, makes things simpler, yes, but you'd have to circumvent, you had to create context through other means from that way, through that. So that's kind of why I'm actually a big advocate I greatly enjoy seeing articles, because they tell me so much about what's what. Like the word turista, for example, right here. We have la turista, and basically this tells the whole story right here. El turista, a male tourist, or la turista, well, I'm covering the whole word, a female tourist. You need that. In my head, it's part of a formula. You need one or the other, and the combined thing makes up a word plus its context. The article, it's just part of it. It's simply part of it. So, you need one and the other combined to make the whole thing, and you get a lot of information out of it. Obviously, yes, you don't know the gender of the tourist. In Spanish, everything defaults to L, or class 1. Class 1 is by default, and something unlike English, Spanish doesn't have a gender neutral. Yeah, so basically everything is class 1 by default. You would just go class 1 with it. So I guess in terms of more less jargony words, you use the masculine form, and that goes back to historical linguistics and politics on why that is. I know people. One of the biggest reasons is because of how male dominant the old world was. If you go back a couple hundred years at most, it doesn't have to be that long. Even like not that too long ago, the world very male dominant in a lot of fields. So they just chose, obviously, what should be quote unquote male, masculine, is where that comes from, by the way. Should be the default factor. And that's why, like, in linguistics, we learn class 1, class 2, class 3 classifications. It's because gender plays no role in language. Gender plays no role. That's not the point of the language. We call it classification system, class 1, class 2, class 3, because that's what they are. We're just classifying words in a way that's easier for us to understand and group them together in a way that forms similar rule sets. Basically, class 1 words all follow a very similar way of working in a sentence. They follow specific rules. Like in Spanish, class 1 words, nouns, generally speaking, have an O ending. Whoa! Guess what? You see a word with an O? Generally speaking, it's a class 1 word. It's masculine. Well, masculine, quote unquote. It'll take the L. There's exceptions, but that's just how it is. It's a classification system to group things that are similar to each other. Back in the day, what was the easiest way of doing that? Well, pick what you see, right? Back in the day, we saw other people, males, and politics, and all that whatnot. It's a gooey gray zone, but that's just how it was. El video, or el video, video, and this is actually our last vocab word. We managed to fit this all in 2 pages. But in some Spanish-speaking countries, there are people trying to push for gender-neutral article and inflection for tourists. For instance, it'd be turiste. Yeah, and they're failing very hard. I'm not gonna. I don't sugarcoat things. They're failing very hard because they're trying to change a social norm of several generations, many years, and at the moment, there's no reason for the general populace to accept such a drastic shift in the language itself. You're pretty much breaking down the structure of a language and trying to rebuild it from the ground up to push a social narrative. That's not how this works, and that's why they're not winning. It's interesting because you can look at the studies done in the African languages, because there's so many down in Africa because of all the tribes. They have many different classification systems, and for us linguists, it's all class 1, class 2, class 3. I think some of them even have other classes. It changes and evolves over time, so don't you think they change could be possible? Just like you said, it's a living thing, and it's constantly changing, yes, but it's always in small steps. It's like English language, where we recently, the prominent word yeet started off with, I don't remember the original connotations associated with yeet, but eventually, at least from what I understand with it, it simply became synonymous with throwing something. So I yeeted that pencil across the room, or I yeeted that eraser across. I yeeted the ball out the window. So that's an English example. But drastic change doesn't happen in language. Drastic change will not happen unless it's political. Again, an example of this in Spanish actually is back in one of the kings, back in the day, in the Spanish king, one of them introduced the lisp into the language. So that lisp stuck as an official pronunciation in Spanish because the king said so. Because the king had a lisp. People don't question the king. The king says this is how it's pronounced. You have the instead of the and actually, if you listen to Enrique Iglesias' music, he has a lisp too. And the lisp wasn't originally part of the Spanish language. It wasn't originally part of the language at all. But the king had a lisp. One of the old kings, older kings, not oldest king, but one of the older kings had a lisp. And when he spoke, you can hear it, obviously. And everyone had to accommodate that, basically. And the king said so. You can't go against the king. That's how it works. And that's how Spanish gained the lisp pronunciations. It's political. That's why historic linguistics, if you go into history of linguistics, a lot of things are politically backed, and that's just how the world works. It's backed by the highest level. The highest level is what we see historically, because it has the largest blanket impact on things. On the ground level, so peasants, workforce, it's not going to change much of anything, really. Maybe some of them will have with the lisp example, they'll have a harder time hearing the king if they ever hear the guy. But for the officials and nobles, they're not going to just incorporate a lisp just because the king has a lisp. They're going to continue their life too, but they know, because of of their social standing position, the lisp is a thing, and they must respect that in the presence of the king. But stuff like that, it's very political based. If for some odd reason something political happens which causes a major shift in the Spanish language, that would be the next turning point in the language itself, in the history books. But it has to be big. The movement we see with trying to rework the language right now is not politically backed by a major faction. It's people trying to cause change when change is not necessary, and thus they're smashing into a brick wall right now. That's just how it is. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna side with either or. It's not my position to do so. And as a linguist, I already don't see a problem, because I see things as a formula. I see things as class 1, class 2, class 3, class whatever. And languages can have more than 3 classes, by the way. Just because knowing like German, for example, has 3 classes, so masculine, feminine, neuter. What I classify as class 1 to class 2, class 3 doesn't mean languages can't have class 4, class 5, class 6, etc. At the end of the day, it's all just categories and being formulaic with the categories so that you can more easily operate the language. That's kind of how that works. So that's why I personally don't have a problem with things like these, because I've already disassociated myself with the notion of gender in language. Obviously, the older way of looking at the language and the more simplistic way of defining a language for beginner learners is going to be through masculine, feminine, because a good portion of the words, not a good portion, a chunk, I won't say small or large, but a chunk of the words follow through with the idea that masculine words are part of the male section, feminine words are part of the female section, even though it's usually a small minority. Like you'll have el hombre for man, el for masculine, whereas you have la joven, or la mujer, la mujer, female, woman, like that. Let's direct, very in your face about it. But there's also lots of other words that do not follow this pattern whatsoever in terms of the noun being male in real life and being a masculine word. No, a lot of words don't fall under that, and also a lot of objects are just non-gendered at all. Table, chairs, doors, they're classified too as masculine, feminine, and it's like, what? Why? They don't have gender. You can't be telling me that that door over there is like a male door, right? Or a female door, right? That's not a thing. Same thing with German and its triple classification. Masculine, feminine, neuter. Just because it's neuter doesn't mean it's inanimate. Just because it's masculine and or feminine doesn't mean it's animate. That's the thing about these things. Make your sentence or information you're providing to be gender neutral. Yeah, that's the thing. Gender shouldn't play a role if it in language, if it doesn't have to. If you're not talking about that in particular, a subject in particular, it doesn't need to be there. But also one needs to recognize that there is no association with the classification system and gender. There is no association there. People made the association back in the day, and it stuck for generations, and now it's an easy way to assist early learners. But is the consequence enough, though? But the push is not because of necessity. It's, as far as I've seen, pushed by people who feel the language itself oppresses women. That's the thing, though. That's the thing. You have to question from their angle, where they're coming from, what's their reasoning? How exactly? I haven't done my research into this field because I thought it was absurd, to be perfectly fair. It's trying to change a very massive thing for something that no one ever thought about. No one thought when speaking Spanish they were oppressing women by speaking Spanish. No one. At least, no one that's remotely sane, in my opinion. And it seemed like an absurd claim when you think about speaking German, Spanish, French, Italian, and you think that just because you have classification systems that utilizes masculine and feminine, that it oppresses women. Like, that's absurd. It's insane. That's not how this works at all, actually. And that's why us linguists use the class system to classify the different sets of words in a language. It doesn't make sense to say, oh, class. They believe that having masculine articles being the default further promotes a patriarchal society. I mean, it's from history, right? It's historical. change can happen, and the thing about the language itself is trying to understand how long of a history a language has, where a language originates from. Lacking that information puts you on a very weak foundation for your argument. You need a very strong foundation to push change of this magnitude. So you need to do a lot of research. You need to understand where things coming from. And so the way to properly push a movement like this, in my opinion, would be you have the people being well informed of where these notions come from to begin with, how they form, and the reason why they formed. Knowing that, you start attacking it from your angle, from your lens, saying, oh, all these things historically speaking, yeah, but with nowadays, we should be trying to change that. We should be trying to change that in a way where we don't have things like this, where we have defaults of certain sides. But again, the biggest weakness to such a movement is the fact that they're associating gender to a language. For linguists, they're talking nonsense to us because we don't associate language with gender. You're speaking nonsense to the specialists in the field when you do that. That's one of the first things we learn as linguists. We disassociate any sort of gender notion with language itself, because we see them as nothing more than just classifications for words, and words are a means of communication. So to try to push ideas behind gender through language, you need a very strong foundation with lots of ways to back yourself up, because otherwise you're speaking nonsense. You don't understand exactly where things are coming from, and trying to push something that you yourself may not have a full grasp on either. Blindly pushing things is not the way to go. I mean, again, that's just my, as a linguist student's perspective. If they had, do you think language has impact on behavior of its culture? It's the opposite way around, actually, Yabu. Language is formed from the behavior of the culture itself. Language, being a form of communication, does not warp a culture. It is warped by its culture. It is changed accordingly in order to best convey meaning between the people within a society, within a group of people. And that is what language is. It is just a method of communication. It's like how English, Old English, very close to German, very, very close to German, Old English used the triple classification system with articles. English used to have articles, Old English. But as time progressed, people who spoke English decided, screw this, we don't want this. In fact, English also used to have a future tense. Did you know English currently does not have a future tense? What's known as a tense, English doesn't have the future version of it. But you think it could go both ways? There's people who feel their brains are rewired after learning new languages and even claim they presently change beyond what language they speak. It is more of a social aspect. I'll get back to that in a second, but for going back to let's talk about English. We don't have a tense for future, unlike present tense, which is the dictionary form of the verb or the s suffix for an ongoing event. And then past tense, we have the ed ending for most things. English used to have an ending for future. We used to have a future tense, but we dropped that. We said we don't want that, and so we only have a present and past tense, and then we have a way to denote things in the future. If you try to listen to yourself in English and you try to say something about the future, you will say, I will do something. They will do go about their way. And at a future location, at a future date, let us do this. We don't have a way, a suffix, or even a prefix, or any fix, because there's such thing as infix, by the way. But we don't have a conjugation for our verb in English to denote future. We add an auxiliary verb in order to denote such a thing, or even a phrase to do so. It is. Old English is rough, dude. For English speakers, it is rough, okay? I personally don't study Old English, so I can't give you an answer there. I've seen examples of it, though. And I would argue it's pretty close to German. I don't know much German, but it looks pretty close to German. Like, because it did have the triple conjugation system, so masculine, feminine, neuter, and it was formed very similar to how the Romance languages are these days. Yeah, Spanish does have a future tense. A lot of languages do have a future tense. Depending where you are in the world, some languages don't have a past tense, some languages don't have a present tense. And that's just how the language is formed. But in regards to the future tense stuff, it was actually a joke my linguistics teacher told the class. He basically said, from transitioning from Old English to current to the current English lost its future. The English language lost its future. That's the joke. That's the joke. And yeah, that gets a good laugh out of everyone because everyone gets it. It's a kind of play on words in the English language. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, and we get that as a joke. It's nothing serious, nothing like trying to change the outlook on someone's life or anything. But yeah, it's just a joke based on simple observations of a language. Going back to what you said earlier, by the way, about how people claim to change in personality based on the language they use. It's more like they're adapting themselves towards a language, because a language, again, as a whole, changes based on the culture, but an individual will work differently based on what they're doing. It's like this goes into social linguistics actually, and the social circles that everyone has. There's many layers to it. There's your closest level, which is your best friends. Perhaps your family even, but maybe not really. Family has this like second layer to it, usually speaking, but your closest aides or people you can talk to the most wholeheartedly. You speak to them in a very open sense. You are able to release yourself to those people, like release your ideas and be very open about yourself to these people. But it's super small. It's like maybe up to 5 people at most in your life. It's a very small handful of people. And then the next layer is like your family, your close family. So people you live with, your parents, siblings, maybe for some, even your grandparents. Like for me, that's for sure. But for others, their grandparents might not even be included. They might be a layer outwards even further. But this layer is where you can say still a lot of things about yourself and express yourself a lot, but you keep certain things closed. You don't say everything. There's something you just can't realize. Which goes back to actually the first layer, by the way. Like your SO. Your SO would probably fall under this category too, where your special other, because of how special they are, you're inclined, if your relationship allows for it, to express to each other very intimate things, very close, like things that you normally wouldn't talk about. That's like the most inner layer. And as you go further, propagate outwards in these social circles, how you talk to one another starts changing. Like the way you talk to your boss, for example, would not be the same way you talk to a coworker. Probably. Generally speaking, you're more formal, polite to your boss, whereas with your coworker, you're more casual, familiar. You're more like buddy type of deal. Just like how talking to a police officer is very different to how you would casually talk about with a random friend of yours, an acquaintance. Very different. The same goes with languages too. Languages can be seen as where your comfort level would be, as well as the way you would converse with these specific type of group of people. It's a different section of your social circle. So that is the social linguistic aspect of the languages there. And that's kind of why people speaking different languages would say things differently. But for me, because I speak fluently Cantonese and English with my friends, we can bounce back and forth very easily between English or Cantonese. There's no real difference there for me and my friends. So language is definitely not the big thing that causes the change in a person there. It's simply who they're speaking with. Are they speaking, like, say, the person we're talking about who, say, speaks a different language, and their personality changes? Is it because of the language, or is it because they're speaking with someone else completely? Are they speaking to the same person in multiple languages, and suddenly they're having a personality shift as they're talking to the same person? Is that what's happening? If that is, that's weird. I won't say anything else about that. That's kind of weird. But yeah, no, that's just how it is. Like, talk to a close friend. You start speaking English, and switch languages. Start speaking a different language. As long as you both know it, right? One of the caveats is that you both need to know the language. So, I know friends who would, like, on a flip of a snap of the finger, they can insert words from different languages into their English sentences on the fly. And as long as and it happens because they're accustomed to both languages, and perhaps they speak with people that are accustomed to both languages. So, to monolanguage speakers or speakers who don't know that language, the second language, it might sound like nonsense, but for people who know both languages, they can parse the information correctly and be like, oh, that's what you mean, kinda. So yeah, I would still say that at the end of the day, it's not the language, it's the person and the people you're speaking with. And that, again, different angle to see from that. It's not about the language in this case. Language is a tool. It's what's being used. What's more important is who's talking to whom. That's the big thing. Man, it's been a while since I've nerded out about language, by the way. So thank you for that. I could go on a lot longer, and I love this conversation, by the way. But I do have a scheduled Mahjong Soul stream. I should be going to now. Yeah. So if you want to keep talking about this, stick around on Twitch, because nothing's going to really change on Twitch. YouTube, on the other hand, I'm going to be switching streams over to my YouTube scheduled stream. So Twitch chat is going to change, but and the game, it's no longer just chatting. It's time for some playing. No, but yeah, for sure. If you ever catch me again with stuff like this, feel free to talk to me about this. I'm very open with it. Perfectly fine with stuff like that. Greatly enjoy it, actually. So, alright, that being said, thank you everyone for this random linguistic spiel at the end of my Spanish episode. This is, again, my last Spanish episode for a very long time, unfortunately. I may pop in every once in a while, but my focus will definitely be on my studies for this semester, or year, actually. And I'll have some Japanese kanji practice. Lessons, on the other hand, might be every other week instead of every week, but we'll see. So I'll be switching over to Mahjong so now. Thank you very much, everyone, for sticking around until now, and I'll see you in the next second.